Hello students, so in this particular video we are going to discuss about the weekly current affairs related to geography and internal security which was in news. Now in this regard, the first topic is about Prevention of Money Laundering Act. PMLA was news. In 24-25 enforcement related news has come. So if you look here, first of all, why it was news. So PML has seen a surge in the enforcement. You know, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, overall it is the enforcement directorate that basically works under it, and it is a very important act that ensures that economic offences in India do not go unpunished. So what we have seen in the last 1 or 2 years, stronger institutional response as far as this particular act is concerned, and also we have seen the investigation cases. If you compare the last 5 years data and then the next 5 year data, that means 2020 to 2025, we have seen the number of prosecutions and the investigation also has increased here. If you look at this particular act, we know that Prevention of Money Laundering Act was brought in year 2002 and finally it was enacted in the January 2003 as such. The main important features of this act, or the, we can say basically objective of this act, was to fight money laundering. Money laundering, we understand, is basically the process through which the criminal organizations and criminal enterprises try to convert their black money into white money by basically passing through it multiple transactions, layering it so that the trace of money becomes difficult to difficult to this identify. Secondly, under this act, if someone is found guilty, confiscation of proceeds of crime is also allowed. That means all the money that might be a result of proceeds of crime, that might be a result of the criminal activities, can be taken by the government, confiscated by the government, and this is a national act. That means it is applicable all across India. If you look at the key provisions of this act, first of all, it is basically projecting crime proceeds as a clean. Under 3, if some section 3, if someone is doing it, he will be considered as a criminal and will be punishable under this offense. Second objective is to attachment of the asset and the confiscation of properties that might be a result of black money activities and the criminal activities, and also it overall economic offences also it is able to control as such. Now under this act, several amendments were done to ensure that act is able to work effectively even with the changing circumstances, and thus in 2009 and 12 we have seen amendment under it. Now enforcement directorate is the nodal agency, which is the central government agencies under PMLA, which has been given power to investigate cases related to money laundering. Also, ED can attach the property that might have been constructed and developed by certain individuals or companies or organizations as a result of criminal activities, and also about the complaints related to prosecution as such. Compliance, do you see here we have KYC norm and maintenance of record is required as far as the ED is concerned. If you look at the overall framework, we can see that ED is also considered as the ED, basically its decision can be challenged against the adjudicating authorities. Appellate tribunal also has been constructed under this act, plus a special court which has been basically the session court has been awarded the status of special court to investigate matter in a fast track manner under this particular act. Also treaties we have signed with several other countries so that we are able to trace the cross-border crime. Also we are able to identify cross-border money laundering and the black money transfer also, and we have signed memorandum of understanding with several foreign states to ensure better cooperation and coordination. As far as this particular financial year is concerned, the latest data points to the fact that about 775 new PMLA cases were registered and 333 prosecution related complaints were registered with under this act. FEMA, that is the Foreign Exchange Management Act, has been the priority area where this act has been working, and also new act that was brought in 2018, that is called as Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. Under this also several applications we have seen here, and we can see that over 900 plus crore of property have been confiscated under this particular act. So that is overall we have to keep in mind as far as the PML is concerned, directly relevant to the internal security challenge, this basically subject. Second is Indian Army social media policy. A new policy has been brought in by the Indian Army, and this has given a clarity that what is the responsibility and soldier of Indian Army should have while interacting on social media. So earlier did not have any uniform policy as such. Now Army has brought in to make it clear. Now Indian Army has revised its policy. Now for its soldiers, for its personnel, it allows passive participation. This entire policy has been issued by the Army headquarters, that is Directorate General of Military Operations, and it will be effective immediately as such. Earlier, if you look, there was a complete or total restrictions, and to some extent a control access only was allowed by the Indian Army personnel. Now, if you look at this particular policy, what Indian Army is allowing now, so platforms are permitted for viewing only. That means any Indian Army soldier can use Instagram, X, Quora, YouTube and all that for viewing purposes, for gathering information, for entertainment purposes and all that. So monitoring content will also be done here, and also largely for knowledge enhancement, as we have discussed, the Indian Army soldiers can use this. Operational discussion related to any Indian Army operation, whether it is past operation, ongoing operation, it will be restricted, and Indian Army personnel cannot use this platform for such purposes. What is prohibited? That means where active use is not prohibited. So posting of any information on the social media, commenting on certain posts, especially that can jeopardize the military operations, sharing of sensitive information and sensitive media, and also reaction on the messaging DM, and plus no user generated content will be allowed as far as the Indian soldiers are concerned. Instagram has been formally added to the restricted use list, which was not in the list earlier. As far as the messaging and professional platforms are concerned, limited use has been allowed for platforms like WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, and Skype, and LinkedIn also. The military personnel can use it for the professional use only. For example, resume, job related information they can put there. But only unclassified information they can again use here. Unclassified information means which army or government has made public for everyone. Such information can be shared. Those information which is classified in nature cannot be shared by the Indian Army soldiers. Second, this information also can be shared only with known individuals on this messaging platform. For certain groups where you have interaction with people who you do not know about, you do not have any awareness about, you should not be sharing such information. Second, for any such information that is being shared on this platform, user would be solely responsible if it is found it violates any law, any act, or jeopardizes any kind of military activities and all that. And also for identity verification, user would be held responsible. Now, as far as security precautions and background is concerned, torrent site, use of virtual private network, VPNs to bypass restrictions and all that, right? Pirated software. This is something where Indian Army soldiers or Indian Army personnel are not allowed. Web proxies like cloud storage and all that is something which is also to be avoided as such. If you look at the background, 2020 is when Facebook and Instagram deletion was ordered, and 89 different apps were banned by the government of India. Many of these were linked to the security of India, and that is why the objective behind this restriction was to ensure that operational security of Indian Army is not compromised. Enemy does not gather information, intelligence from these sources and do not enjoy upper hand, and also to prevent any data leakage for especially espionage purposes. That we have seen many many handlers from Pakistan, China, they have been involved in gathering intelligence. To avoid such circumstances, restrictions were placed here. That is about the new policy. Third topic is related to the Subansiri hydroelectric project that we have seen developing in the Arunachal Pradesh, northeastern state of Arunachal Pradesh. The entire project is called as Subansiri Lower Hydroelectric Project. Now it was news because landslide has blocked the diversion tunnel and downstream flow in this particular river has been stopped. Because of this region, Subansiri river bed also has run dry, and obviously as the water volume has reduced, aquatic life also is facing a certain threat. Plus safety and availability concerns also we have seen shaping up in this area. If you look at the overall project itself, it is the run of the river project. It simply means that water will not be stored permanently in a reservoir through the dam. Rather, it will be run of the river project. That means water will be simply diverted away, and then also the installed capacity will be about 2000 megawatt. Through the use of this diverted water, turbines can be rotated that can be used to generate hydroelectricity, and that capacity will be 2000 megawatt as such. The project was approved in 2003, construction began in 2005, and this entire project is being executed by one of the government companies, PSU companies we can say, that is National Hydropower Corporation, or NHPC in the short. If you look at the location of this entire area, Geruka Mukh is the region along the Assam-Arunachal border, because that is from where the river, that is the Brahmaputra river, known as Yarlung Shangpo in Tibet, enters Arunachal. There the river is known by the name of Siang. Here it also meets another tributary further in the Assam called as Subansiri river. Subansiri is the largest tributary of Brahmaputra, and this entire region is very strategic from North India perspective. If you look at the structure of dam itself, the height of dam is about 116 meter. It is example of concrete gravity dam The length of reservoir is 34.5 kilometer. 5 diversion tunnels have been constructed here. 8 spillways are there. And if you look at the northeastern India, especially the 7 states that you have, is where we have the largest dam, and this is the largest dam here. And this is also very important from the energy security perspective as hydel electricity. And also you understand one other benefit of hydroelectricity is that it is one of the least polluting method of generation of electricity as such. Plus, the reservoir can also be used for the management of flood because Brahmaputra river and its tributaries are known for devastating flood, especially in the plains of Assam, and that is where the cascaded dam can play an important role because it will restrict the flow of water by using the sluice gate, by using the spillways, and thus downstream flood moderation is also one of the intended objective of this particular project. If you talk about the benefits from this project, annual generation capacity will be about 7,500 million units. 16 states will be beneficiary state here, and 1,000 megawatt reserved only for the northeast as such. Now, power to 16 beneficiary state we have discussed, free power to Assam and Arunachal Pradesh because the river is flowing through these two states only. So, energy security perspective, irrigation for cropping, or we can say agriculture perspective, as well as also to ensure drinking water security, a project can play a very critical role. Now, it also has engineering significance because it is the heaviest hydro generator rotors is where we have put we have put here in this particular project. Largest stators and inlet walls have been used here. Plus, Rotek tower belt system we have used for the first time in India as far as the hydroelectricity generation is concerned. So, it has given not only boost to the hydroelectricity generation potential, or we can say capacity of India, but also it has given boost to hydro engineering, where we are continuously using and applying new way of generating it, new methods, complex methods and all that, and in future it can play a very significant role. Now, if you talk about river Subansiri, Subansiri basically is Swern plus Siri, that means the river of gold. In Tibet, the river is known by the name of Chayul Chu. It is originating from the Tibetan Himalayas, enter India near the place called as Taksing, then it flows through the Miri Hills, which is part of Sivalik range. In northeast, nearby you have Dafla, Abor, Mishmi Hills as well. So it flows through the Miri Hills and then joins Brahmaputra near Jamuri Ghat. Now, very important fact, it is where the river joins Brahmaputra, you will also see one of the largest riverine, actually the largest riverine island of the world called as Majuli Island. So that is why that is where the significance of this river also lies. Now, the next topic is related to the Japan nuclear power plant, which the Japanese government has decided to restart. Now, near the Fukushima nuclear disaster, we have seen that in 2011 due to the tsunami, nuclear meltdown occurred, and after that Kashiwazi Kariwa nuclear plant was shut down. Now, government of Japan after many years have decided to start this plant. 15 years we can say after Fukushima disaster. Now, because of this, public has very bitter memory associated with this nuclear radiation, this leakage and meltdown, and that is why large scale protest we are seeing taking place in the Japan, and people are concerned over the nuclear safety risk. Now, Japan's energy strategy has shifted. Earlier, if you look at the Japan, the dependency on fossil fuel was very, very high. If you look at a couple of decades back actually, 60 to 70% of electricity Japan was getting from the import only. Because Japan is a small volcanic island, it does not have high reserves of coal, or that is why it cannot generate thermal electricity. It does not have oil and natural gas, and that is why import dependency was very high. At the same time, energy demand was continuously increasing as Japan was progressing at a faster rate toward industrialization and economic development. Artificial intelligence data centers are also being created in Japan now, and that also would further increase energy demand in the future as such. Now, Japan at the same time has given commitment to ensure that it will take measures to neutralize the effect of climate change. So, it has put decarbonization goal. That means it cannot shift again to thermal power plant or generation of electricity by use of carbon and all that. So, it needs some sort of such such sources of power which are clean in nature, and the only alternative Japan has, where it also has, we can say, experience, is the nuclear energy generation. And recently the government of Japan has stated that they are planning to double the share of nuclear energy or nuclear power in the overall basket of power generation by year 2040, and that will be double from whatever is the capacity of Japan today as such. Now, if you talk about the Kashiwazaki Kariwa nuclear plant, it is the world's largest nuclear power plant as far as the capacity is concerned, located near the capital city of Japan, that is Tokyo here, and TEPCO is the company which operates it. Now, it also has a strategic importance for the Japanese grid, because if this particular nuclear power plant fails, it also jeopardizes the energy security of a large region of Greater Japan, that is also Greater Tokyo region as it is called as, and thus overall it has become a symbol of revival of nuclear energy. If you look at the background, why people are protesting against this, the reason is because of the nuclear meltdown, nuclear disaster that Fukushima recorded in year 2011. We know that in 2011, because Japan is located along the junction of three plates, you have Eurasian plate in the eastern side, then you have the Pacific plate in the western side, and Filipino plate in the southern side. And whenever this plate interaction happen, whenever the plate tectonics come into picture, earthquakes are recorded, and because around this entire area you have large volume of water in the ocean, it also triggers tsunami. So it is believed that due to the combined effect of earthquake and tsunami, the cooling system of this nuclear power plant failed, and because of the failure of this cooling system, the core where the nuclear reaction occurs in a controlled manner, that basically melt down. All the three reactors underwent meltdown. This meltdown led to release of nuclear radiation, which obviously has a very devastating and harmful impact on the health. Many scholars argue that this nuclear disaster can be considered as the worst industrial accident since Chernobyl in 1986. Chernobyl disaster, we have seen nuclear disaster that occurred in the Ukraine, that time part of Soviet Union, and there also large number of people had died, and not only in that generation, for several coming generations, people had the had adverse effect of this, genetic changes and genetic mutation we also have seen. So mass evacuation exclusion zones were created around both Fukushima and the Chernobyl earlier. Now, public is opposing it because of the safety concern. Protest is being seen especially by the survivors of the people who unfortunately died in the Fukushima disaster. So these people, again, because they have felt this pain, they fear that such kind of radiation leakage risk will again arise. Disaster can reoccur because again nothing has changed as far as the geology of Japan is concerned. Japan still is located on the boundary of three plates. Plates are continuously moving, plates are continuously interacting, and that is why such kind of things we can see. Plus TEPCO, which was responsible for the safety of this nuclear plant, now they had failed earlier, and again the same company is given the responsibility of operating the plant, restarting the plant. So people do not have trust because of the earlier failures as such. So overall, the entire debate in Japan right now is going on between nuclear safety on the one hand and at the same time energy security on the other as such. Now, if you compare this with India's nuclear sector, as far as the current situation is concerned, India has relatively a modest amount of power that is generated by nuclear sources. This today stands at about 8.18 gigawatt. 100 gigawatt is the target of Government of India by 2047. Several new nuclear plants India is also opening, such as Kudankulam nuclear plant you have in Tamil Nadu. Apart from that, we have the proposal in the Maharashtra Jaitapur nuclear power plant and such. And we are taking help of several countries such as France, US and also Russia. Government also has brought a new act called as Santi Act in 2025, where till now nuclear energy was largely under the control of government companies, PSUs and all that, especially NPCIL, Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited. Now under this bill, private sector will be allowed entry in the nuclear energy sector of India, and it will also help in basically increasing up rapidly the expansion and the capacity increase, because investment can be mobilized to a greater extent, because the government or the PSUs have limited financial capacity to expand. Efficiency can also improve, because if there is an involvement of private sector, the monopoly enjoyed by NPCI will come to this basically will decline, will reduce, and thus healthy competition will further increase efficiency. And this is something that we can see as a contrast with Japan's nuclear revival here. India fortunately has not experienced any nuclear energy related disaster, and that is why expansion is being done. And also we are ensuring that it is done in geologically stable areas, so that the threat of natural disaster on nuclear power plant can be of minimum extent. The next chapter talk is related to a concept called as Southern Ocean Carbon Anomaly. So if you look here, why was it in news? So recently, one of the most famous journal in the world called as Nature, it has published a study related to climate change. Now, it has stated that in the Southern Ocean, you know that overall 70% of this world's area or Earth's area is covered underwater, which is divided into 5 oceans. One of the ocean around the Antarctica is referred as Southern Ocean. Now, what this journal has highlighted that in recent times, Southern Ocean, its carbon dioxide uptake has increased and it overall contradicts the climate model prediction. It reveals Southern Ocean carbon anomaly. Now, let us try to understand this in more detail. We know that basically atmosphere ocean keeps on interacting with each other, and that is why if you are emitting more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, ultimately it will be absorbed by the water of ocean also. So when we talk about the Southern Ocean carbon anomaly, core idea is the carbon sink is expected to weaken. That means you talk about Southern Ocean, its capacity to absorb more carbon should weaken. However, what we have seen in recent year that it is continuing or it kept on increasing absorption of CO2, or it has kept on absorbing more and more CO2 than expected as such. Since early 2000, deep carbon were trapped below the surface, and since then sink role has sustained. That means we can say Southern Ocean is basically what it is doing. You are you are sending CO2 in the atmosphere through emissions by vehicles or emissions by industries, and then it is taken back by the ocean as such, especially Southern Ocean. Now, why models predicted weakening? The reason was because greenhouse gases continuously have been rising due to industrialization and the increase in population. Second, ozone layer was also undergoing thinning. We have discussed the development of ozone holes around Arctic and Antarctic. The strong westerly winds we have seen blowing up in the recent years from the subtropical high pressure belt to the subpolar low pressure belt, and overall these winds have also shifted in the poleward areas. All of this would have led to increase in the upwelling and overall carbon rich deep water exposure as such, and that is why there was expectation that CO2 will be released from the ocean as such. Now, if we talk about the role of ocean stratification also, what we are seeing that freshwater input has increased in this ocean by rainfall, by the rapid melting of ice due to global warming, and also the sea ice being transported by the ocean current here. Now, what happens when more and more fresh water is added in the ocean? It acts as a lighter layer, and that is why this layer becomes completely stratified or separated from the bottom layer as such. And this freshwater layer acts as a lid, and thus because of this, carbon remains trapped in the ocean somewhere at depth of 100 to 200 meters, because the upper 100 meter is made up of this freshwater lighter layer acting as a lid. Now, why this is a climate risk? This is the question that was posed and explained by Nature Journal, that stratification may be temporary in nature. That is the first thing. That is why CO2 currently is contained in the ocean. It is not able to escape out. And since early 2000, we have seen rise in salinity, and also we have seen weaker stratification. That means the lid overall, we can say the strength of this lid is declining. Plus easier wind mixing is taking place, and that is why if you understand, if the volume or if the thickness of this lid declines, if this lid of the fresh water becomes weaker due to the entry of more salt water, in that case the carbon that is trapped in the 100 to 200 meter layers of the ocean will start to get released, and the ocean, which is naturally acting as a sink reservoir, will start to act as a source of carbon dioxide. That means from land side anyway we are emitting carbon dioxide, and now oceans will also start to emit CO2 as such. So that was the overall topic of discussion in this particular journal in the article. If you look at the geographical facts about Southern Ocean is extended somewhere around Antarctica up to 60 degrees south as such. It is defined by the Antarctic circumpolar current. That means you have Antarctica, around Antarctica you have the Southern Ocean, and the Southern Ocean boundary is made by an ocean current called as Antarctic circumpolar current that traverses across throughout the earth, passing through Pacific, Atlantic and Indian Ocean. As far as the area is concerned, it is the 4th largest ocean, because the smallest one is Arctic, so 4th largest ocean. It includes several sea also, like Weddell Sea, Ross Sea, Amundsen Sea, Bellingshausen Sea, and here the narrowest point in this ocean is a very important area called as Drake Passage, which is also used as an important navigation route while traversing or while moving to the Antarctic landmass. As far as the climate significance is concerned, it is believed that 40% of the anthropogenic emission, anthropogenic means human-led emissions of CO2, is absorbed here. 75% of excess heat that is being seen trapped in the atmosphere is also being absorbed here, because initially I told you that ocean atmosphere keeps on continuously interacting with each other. The strongest current, if you talk about, is the Antarctic circumpolar current, that also is seen in the Southern Ocean. And overall, it plays a very important role, a key role in meridional overturning circulation. Meridional overturning circulation basically refer to the circulation of water from polar areas to the polar areas. That means the water polar to equatorial areas. So water sink near the polar areas, then deeper in the ocean it travels toward the equator, while warm light water from equator travels on the surface and reaches the polar areas. That is why we call it overturning circulation between equator and pole. This also is the region of high bioproductivity, marine productivity, and krill-based marine food web we see developing here as such. So very important, because krill is also being used by food by animals such as penguins, known which are basically found on the Antarctic landmass. Now, if you look at few questions with reference to the revised Indian Army social media policy, consider the following statement. Army personnel are permitted to post content on Instagram for professional awareness. Passive viewing of platforms like X and Y and YouTube is allowed. Communication apps may be used only for unclassified information with known individual. So which of these statements given above is correct? So obviously we can say content on Instagram for professional awareness, passive viewing of platform is allowed, communication app may be used only for unclassified information with known individuals. So 1, 2 and 3, all 3 are correct here. Second, about nuclear power plant, Kasiwa Jaki Kariwa nuclear power plant recently in news. It's significant because first nuclear plant to be privately owned, world's largest nuclear power plant, uses thorium-based nuclear reactor, operated by Japan's Ministry of Energy. So we know that A, C and D is incorrect. It is world's largest nuclear power plant by installed capacity. This is a very important fact you should keep in mind from examination perspective. Third is related to Southern Ocean, continues to absorb carbon dioxide despite strong westerly winds, primarily due to increased phytoplankton uptake, weak Antarctic circumpolar current, surface stratification preventing vertical mixing, reduced atmospheric CO2 concentration. We just have discussed it is because of the surface stratification that prevents vertical mixing, and CO2 remains trapped deep down somewhere between 100 to 200 meters. So the freshwater layer above this region of ocean act as a lid here. If you look at the significance of these topics from UPSC perspective, PMLA is the most important one, because directly questions can be asked from the internal security topic, that steps taken to counter terrorism, counter financial crimes, economic offenses and all that, there you can write about. Ocean circulation, such kind of news whenever it comes becomes important, because in prelims examination, climate change, climatology, oceanography, these are very, very important topics, and that is why question can be asked here. Indian military policy, not very important, you just have to be aware about it, that the new policy has come which basically gives a clear idea about the role of social media, or to what extent social media can be used by the Indian military personnel. Nuclear plant, very important facts you have to keep in mind from prelims perspective. And because nuclear power plant of Japan in news, question in prelims can easily be asked about the nuclear plant or nuclear power generation status in India as such. So you have to prepare also from India's perspective, plus resources you also have to prepare here. About the Subansiri project, where it is located, the mapping based questions is what you have to prepare. The tributary river, that is Subansiri, what river it is tributary of, where it is coming from, the origin points, basically source point and all that. That is all what we have to cover in these 5 topics that was news last week. Thank you very much.